This is the time to do what the biggest money in the world is doing, and that is to start de-dollarizing, just like Russia is doing, because Russia is telling you, Putin is telling you by his actions, there's a black swan event coming. When for the first time ever, they own more gold than they do dollars in their foreign reserves. I'll tell you, that's not by coincidence.
This week's specials with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. 2022 Silver Britannias for only $3.95 over spot. And 2021 Silver Maple Leaf Coins for only $5.25 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Andy Schectman is the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, and he joins us this Tuesday, November 16th, 2021, for a weekly market update. Andy, thank you for coming back on.
Good to be here. It's crazy how fast the weeks keep going by. Done again. We're at Thanksgiving. The year's almost over. It's bang! You know, my dad has this great analogy. He always talks about how life is like a roll of toilet paper. And when you're young, you don't notice the spinning and the passage of time. But as you get older, it seems to spin a lot quicker. And I don't know about you, but the last 2 years have been like a blur to me. And this just, when you actually think about it, that it's already almost Thanksgiving, it's where the heck did the year go? So anyways, it's good to always be here with you. I look forward to every Tuesday. So thanks for having me back again.
Always glad for your perspectives on the inside of the supply chain for the precious metals investment industry. A lot of our viewers are here because they look to you for someone who's got boots on the ground on the inside. And wanted to circle back before we get into that. Well, shoot, let's just start with that. Then I'll get to this news story that came out this week on the Epic Times. But back to the boots on the ground. What we were just talking about before we started recording was the continued difficulty of getting metals available within a timely manner. And in fact, just today, I've had to send out multiple communications to clients saying, you know, those Noah's Ark coins we expected in today, well, now they're expecting them in a week from today because we had a slip on the delivery of them to us from the mint. And that's just becoming, as you've said in the past, more the norm than the exception in the current environment. What else are you seeing that people need to be aware of?
It's maddening. It truly is. You know, we talked about how we had millions of dollars worth of metal in a Brinks truck where the employees quit in Salt Lake City before they made it up to our warehouse in North Dakota and left the truck at Brinks, Salt Lake City. I guess it had something to do with protocol related to vaccine or what have you. But these are just the things that we have to deal with these days. As I keep saying, it's like running a logistics company. Next week would be they're on a truck right now, I was told. Next week will be at the very, very longest. We'll hope to have them here. The very, very latest would be Monday, I'm expecting. But yeah, you know, you're reliant upon so many people to follow through with their obligations. It's kind of like a derivative. A derivative is only as valuable as the counterparty's ability to produce or to perform. And so when we are told by a group that has held our money for weeks that yes, it'll be on a truck and it's not, you know, it's you just have to roll with it. I guess this is the sign of the times, and I think we'll see probably more of this. Look, getting product in regards to silver is hard. It's getting harder, and it's I don't see much end in sight, to be honest with you, because if anything, it's getting more challenging than it's ever been. And the demand is picking up more than it ever has. And I guess this is what we're going to have to deal with until things loosen up, if they ever do.
I know I've said it before, but it bears saying again, and that is I'm having to change my behavior as a broker every single morning when people call and say, do you have this? Do you have that? Or how much is this? How much is that? I just keep disciplining myself not to say anything until I check the live inventory system, because things can just get cleaned off the shelf overnight. And the stuff that I thought we had, I thought I knew how many of whatever species of coins or bars we had last night or what the premiums were. And I look back and nope, the times have changed and it's a new day. So I always have to tell people, and they chuckle along because they've heard me say this, and some of them, and it's absolutely the truth. I have to check the live inventory because things can change so fast.
I think you'll see this really as an industry-wide phenomenon. You probably already are. I don't follow the other companies that often, but I do know that it is industry-wide because I deal with the distributors. And I guess the moral of the story is the only way you get product nowadays as a company, the 4 or 5 of us that are dealing predominantly to the public in large volume, you have to buy copious amounts. You have to buy it 60, 90 days in advance. You have to be able to hedge it. And then you have to be able to run logistics on it. And you need to be able to communicate that all the way down from buying it to the end user, and then be able to monitor it the whole way through, and are reliant upon several chains of custody along the way. It's tough. It's not what it used to be. We're fortunate to have relationships that allow us to continue to do this. But if you're not in a position to, spend a lot more than a lot, let's just say you have to spend a lot and you have to be able to hedge it and follow it and track it. If you're not able to do that, you're not going to have much of anything these days, because the people that would be able to buy a few thousand here and a few thousand there and a few thousand here from distributors is long gone before it gets to that point.
I also wanted to circle back with you on a story that we talked about that was broken about a week and a half ago by Wall Street on Parade. We put a link to it in that interview that we did. And now it's been echoed with more detail just this past week here from Epoch Times. And this is about President Joe Biden's nominee for the comptroller of the currency. It's one of the most powerful positions in banking in our country. And this is a nominee, Omarova is her last name. And she's written several position papers and has been on a topic that's just breathtakingly unconstitutional. If you look down the list of what she has proposed that the Federal Reserve do, and you hold that up next to what you've learned about what goes on in either, say, Soviet Russia, or what goes on in communist China, it's hard to distinguish what she's proposing from how those countries run their financial operations. One of the things, the summary at the beginning of the article is, in Omarova's world, America really only needs one bank, the Federal Reserve. Omarova, President Joe Biden's nominee to be one of the top banking regulators, has proposed such drastic expansion of government control over finance that it's leaving some experts scratching their heads over whether the administration is serious about her nomination. I think a lot of us have been scratching our heads about a lot of things that have happened in the past 2 years. It's like, really, in our country, that's going to happen, and so on. But it goes on to talk about, we talked about before, her proposal that all bank accounts be moved from ordinary banks to the Fed, and that the Fed be able to bail those in if they want to reduce liquidity, or they be able to make sure that any payments from the government to individuals goes directly through those accounts and not outside of those accounts, and that they also be able to intervene directly in asset markets to, if they think that markets are going too high, that they would be able to short those markets. If they think that markets need support, they would support those markets. So basically managing the economy through the Fed directly. And the author of this article in the Epoch Times goes on to describe how these exact types of interventions of centralized government control over markets has played out in places like Soviet Russia, where the price of bread went up 13 times on the official market and 100 times on the black market, and so on. And then, because prices were so high, the government drained out the monetary supply, saying, well, obviously there's too much money in currency in circulation if prices are that high. So how it had just absolutely gutted the livelihoods of ordinary people and their ability to just obtain things. So you end up with bread lines and cabbage lines and that sort of thing. So anyway, this is our current nominee right now in the U.S. for the comptroller of the currency. And I thought, any more perspectives that you have on the direction that our official financial world seems to be heading?
Well, this is no different than everything we've talked about for the last year and a half. We've talked about the Fed wanting to have the ability to enact monetary policy directly to the people, to usurp the commercial banks, which haven't been playing ball. And for us to be surprised that they will bring in a candidate, Omarova, who in essence wants to have the Federal Reserve take over the U.S. depository accounts and reshape retail banking, is no surprise to me, actually. In fact, it's exactly what we've been saying, that the Fed wants to be able to inject money. And now the part that gets a little bit freaky is when they feel that there's too much inflation and they have to deflate the currency them to actually be able to withdraw money out of our accounts, which is something that she actually acknowledges that is somewhat controversial, but nonetheless is not departing from the way that she wants to do this. Also, she's talked about keeping the banks there just for KYC and AML, anti-money laundering, and KYC, know your client. In other words, there's a retail establishment where if you have to, if you want to do something, you may have to go and get KYC'd in person. Who knows what she means by that? But to me, one of the things that it creates the biggest controversy in what she's been talking about is to put fossil fuel companies out of business. And that's what it seems like to me. In fact, one of her quotes was that she said, let me see if I can find this actual quote.
While you're looking that up, I wanted to piggyback on one thing we said earlier when they said how this exactly played out in the Soviet system. Not only did prices of necessities like bread go up by 13 to 100 times, but in response to that, it said the regime then decided to curb inflation. Does inflation sound familiar? By draining liquidity. On May 30th, 1953, the regime announced that the old currency would expire the next day and be exchanged for a new currency. The exchange rate was drastically progressive. Small cash accounts of the old currency and small deposits were exchanged at a rate of 5 old for 1 new. Large deposits had a rate of 30 to 1, and even larger cash amounts 50 to 1. In effect, the populace was stripped of its savings. The move pushed back inflation, but decimated the people's trust in the monetary system.
Right, and that's kind of what she talks about, that this would only, the people with smaller accounts wouldn't be affected. It's only the larger accounts. A quote that she said here, she says, "Here what I am thinking about is primary, the coal industry and oil and gas industry. A lot of smaller players in that industry are probably going to go bankrupt in short order. At least we want them to go bankrupt if we want climate change." She would create a national investment authority, which would then determine who got bailed out and who doesn't. And, certainly doesn't sound like free market capitalism. That's for darn sure. And, equally as concerning, in my opinion, is Lael Brainerd. This is another, this is the favorite of the progressive left for Fed chair. This is who AOC wants to run it. She is a full modern monetary theorist. And that she's going in. And the reason she's going in is because last week or 2 weeks ago, when Biden was on trip, I think it was in Scotland, he was asked by a reporter, "Who are you going to reappoint Powell? It's getting late in the hour. Normally you have a reappointment by now." And he said, "Well, not sure yet." It was on a tee there for him to say, "Of course, he's my guy." He's a Trump bobo. He doesn't want to have someone who Trump appointed run the Fed, especially because, he's talking about tapering. In fact, they even announced tapering. And something, after he announced tapering, the bond market rallied by 10% in 4 days. And the reason the bond market rallied, and remember, the bond traders are the smartest traders on the planet. The reason the bond market rallied, and it should have gone the other way, when they announced tapering, is because the day after he got back from his trip, he invited both Powell and Brainerd to the White House. And the bond traders, who are the smart ones, view that as Brainerd is going to be reinominated, is going to be the new Fed governor, the Fed chief, and Powell's on his way out. Well, they're not going to taper. They won't taper. Lael Brainerd will see to that. And I think this is exactly why he did not reaffirm his intention to have Powell be reaffirmed or another term. And so you put Brainerd and Omarova into office, and it's going to look very, very different to what it looks like now, what it's ever looked like. In fact, I think that is maybe the most bullish thing for equities. And it's not just gold and silver. I think you could see stocks do really well too. Any assets will do well because they're going to continue to inflate. They're going to continue to keep interest rates low. They're going to continue to stimulate. They're going modern monetary theory. And they will, I think, destroy the value of the dollar, but certainly, I think, make what we do a whole hell of a lot more attractive, done again. And you can see this is the way the progressive left wants to take this economy, and to me, it's quite concerning and quite frightening.
In the light of that, if you could describe to us, I wanted to share one more thing before we move on, and that's, you talked about the sentiment that people are trying to figure out what can an ordinary person do in the face of this. And I spoke with a client just now who echoed concerns that you have addressed before about whether it's really yours or not. Because here we're talking about accounts where people have always considered their savings accounts. That's where they put their earnings, their savings. And now the government's saying that the direction of the nominees that they're looking at are seeing those as government managed, government supervised, government intervened with accounts. So it's not private anymore. It's not personal anymore. Personal property being basically up for grabs from the powers that be. People are concerned about that. They're also looking at our IRA accounts and even precious metals IRAs. We've seen people who have pooled silver accounts in particular under specific custodians, specific depositories. We've recommended, and John Adams, Australian economist, has recommended people get out of unallocated or pooled ownership and into something that they actually have physical legal title to individual physical metal in. So I just spoke with a client just before we got on the line here who is considering a similar move. There are some big name custodians, one in particular, who will only allow you to have unallocated or pooled silver. So once again, if you could clarify and demystify that for people, why is it important? Why should people take seriously getting out of unallocated or pooled accounts and into fully allocated, fully segregated?
Yeah, I mean, there's just no question about it. I mean, if you're going to be in a storage account, you're crazy to have it in a pooled account, especially when you see the difference in cost between pooled and segregated. There's a big difference in cost because you get what you pay for. And I think pooled accounts are very dangerous. I would never in a million years hold my own metal in a non-segregated account, whether it's in an IRA or not. There are people who say if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Well, if you have to have it stored, it better damn well be segregated to your name, allocated to the account or the program, and segregated to you specifically. But, to your point, and again, I am not patting myself on the back, and I'm not trying to sound like, I've been right. But look at the progression of everything that's been happening. We talked about this for over a year, a central bank digital currency coming so that the Fed could enact monetary policy. We've said that 100 times. We've talked about the biggest money in the world, dedollarizing. In fact, Russia now has more gold in its reserves than they do dollars for the first time ever. They're de-dollarizing. China is accumulating massive amounts. Their people are accumulating tremendous amounts. Alistair McLeod, who you have on your show all the time, talks about their people owning 18,000 tons of gold, which is nearly two and a half times what the U.S. supposedly owns. Their imports through Hong Kong are up 60% this year. Serbia's gold holdings are at all-time highs. India is up over the last 12 months. They're up 75 tons, 11% year over year. All of the central banks I've been talking about for the past 4 years that have been gobbling up gold, this big whale on COMEX who's sitting on 40,000 December gold contracts, Palatine buying 50 million in gold. Do you not see the trend? Everything is happening the way we've talked about it happening. And it's very obvious if you take a step back and you look at what the biggest money in the world is doing. They leave crumbs for us to see what's happening. And when you see a government that is going down this path, it's very predictable. It's predictable because the minute Nancy Pelosi said she wanted a digital Fed dollar because viruses can live on currency, just take a step back and see the positioning of everyone and the steps that have been made since, or the reclassification of gold and the accumulation by the biggest money in the world and the repatriation and now it's going all the way to the family offices and the sovereign wealth funds, where one trader can hold almost $8 billion worth of gold for December delivery. I guess we'll have to see if he takes delivery. I assume he will. But I guess all I'm simply trying to say is that I've been saying this for the last 2 years. Everything that is happening is going to script. You can see it happening. And I don't take any joy in appearing to be right. All I'm simply saying is that price is a tool of misdirection. We are purposely being confused by the counterintuitive price action and the rhetoric that the mainstream gives us. But if you look at what the biggest money in the world has been doing for since 2017, it is glaringly obvious. They're all de-dollarizing. They're all getting out in front of what is coming. And someone like Omarova and Brainerd taking over the monetary fiscal policy of this country, moving us into full modern monetary theory, moving us into what is nearly a communist regime type of economy. I don't know. It's getting concerning. Really, truly is getting concerning. And this is why we own gold and silver, not to get wealthy, because it gives us a little bit of an exit from the matrix. It gives us some privacy. It gives us liquidity in an asset class that has lived through every world war, that has lived through every pandemic, German hyperinflation, Great Depression, and it's still immutable wealth. This is why we own it. And these things, these stories we talk about are only going to increase in severity. And it always mystifies me why some people don't react until they absolutely see it with their own eyes instead of trusting their gut. This is the time to do what the biggest money in the world is doing, and that is to start de-dollarizing, just like Russia is doing, because Russia is telling you, Putin is telling you by his actions, there's a black swan event coming. When for the first time ever, they own more gold than they do dollars in their foreign reserves. I'll tell you, that's not by coincidence.
In the light of that, what weekly special do we have to help people who do want to either start or increase their personal possession of metals?
As we've been saying, getting product is really tough. I have in stock for this week's special, I believe it's 19,000 2022 silver UK Britannias at $3.95 over the price of silver. They are in stock, much unlike the Noah's Ark, which we would have hoped would have been in stock. These are actually in our warehouse. We also have 35,000 2021 Canadian Maple Leafs in stock at 5.25 over spot. These are all ready to go. The Noah's Arks will be in next week, and I do believe we'll have a nice special next week in silver. Not sure how many, but we'll keep it coming as much as we can. But I'll tell you right now, again, in terms of price, I'm actually kind of surprised that the premiums on the 2022 Britannias and on the Maples haven't increased. They've been relatively stable for the past several weeks. This is a sweet spot, I guess you could say. But look, it wouldn't take but an uptick in demand to completely wipe out everything this industry has. And I think we're getting to that point where people are beginning to wake up and realize that they need to do something with the money that they've made. If you have assets, your assets have gone up strongly over the last few years. And I think there's a realization with a lot of people that, you know, it's been easier to make the money than ultimately it might be to keep it. And we're trying to help people find a way to keep it and to preserve it. And I think that's exactly what gold and silver are right now. Not only will it help you preserve it, but it's one heck of a value in comparison to all of the other asset classes that just seem to be so inflated, so unrealistically valued. And gold and silver might be the only semblance of sanity and reality left in the asset universe, in my opinion.
All right. Well, we're going to have those pictures of those products on the screen here for people who want to take advantage of that special. And just wanted you, Andy, to get a chance to let us know basically what your gut is telling you about timing on things. People, I know it's impossible for us to predict the whens, but we're seeing these things unfold right before us. And with increasing urgency, I've been getting called from people who are either first timers or who have been basically sitting back. They did small test orders earlier, or they've been doing like a regular time, what do you call it, cost averaging plan over time. And now their amounts are getting significantly. These are people who've been, some of them calling for months or years, and now they're making bigger moves because they feel like they can't wait any longer.
I don't dispute that. And I'll tell you something. It's been an incredible ride over the past 2 years, Dunnigan. I mean, I've never worked like this in my life. I don't know if it's day or night, what day it is. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I mean, truly, it's been It's been unlike anything I've ever seen in 31 years. And if I were to be completely candid and say, what do you think could stop this for your company? It would be the inability to get product. Because when and if we run out of product, no one sells, and no one's going to sell in that environment. I hope I'm wrong. I truly hope I'm wrong. But I think that right now, I think there's several years left to go in this bull run based upon the type of administration they're trying to put into office. There's at least a few years left or more. And as long as there's product to be had, we'll find it. But the one biggest serious challenge that I think we will face, as I've said, I've been consistent, but early, is getting product. And I hope I'm wrong. We'll keep plugging away. Get it while you can. Cost averaging is the best way to smooth out uncertainty. But make sure you have a core position intact first so that you can, have the luxury of being able to cost average and not freak out if there's a 2-week delay instead of having it immediately delivered. So I hope everyone out there senses my sincerity. I truly, truly believe it is the one black swan in this industry event where everything just disappears that will catch people off guard. There are a lot of people waiting for a move in cryptocurrencies or waiting for a moment to exit with profit in equities or in whatever. There's only so many people that can make it through the revolving door at once. And please, with all the sincerity I can give you, that is my biggest concern moving forward, 100%.
Well, Andy, as always, on behalf of all of our viewers, just thank you for joining us for these weekly market updates here on Liberty and Finance.
It's always great to be here. I look forward to seeing you soon, next week anyway.
This is Dunnigan Kaiser, founder of Liberty and Finance. I'm now a licensed gold and silver broker for Miles Franklin. Call me directly for the physical gold and silver that you need at the best price with personalized private service from one of the oldest and best companies in the business. 31 years strong, A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, 0 complaints, licensed and bonded for physical delivery, vault storage, or precious metals IRAs. Excellent prices, privacy, and confidentiality. Pay by check, money order, ACH, bank wire, or Bitcoin. Satisfaction guaranteed. For fastest service, just call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 888-81-LIBERTY. And either I or one of my sons and fellow brokers will call you back as soon as we can and understand your needs.